everyone, the NBA draft is tomorrow, Wednesday. So I decided let's do a full first round mock draft so you could familiarize yourself with some of the prospects and have a bit of knowledge prior to the draft. We're going to be going full 30 picks, first rounders. Not going to do trades, but I will go through and talk through some trades you could see happen or I could see potentially happening. The Brooklyn Nets have 5 first round picks. Nobody expects them to draft all 5 and use them. So we're going to sort of go through, analyze the fit, analyze the prospect, and analyze what teams may make a trade, but I won't be including trades here. Once again, for this mock draft, we're going to be using Fanspo's mock draft simulator. I find it to be the best one. It's the most in-depth one. You have your available players here, their current roster, and along with their depth chart. So it should be pretty fun. So with the first pick, everybody knows this. It's not a shock. The Dallas Mavericks are going to select Ace Bailey. I'm joking. The Dallas Mavericks are going to select Cooper Flagg. There is no if, buts about this. Cooper Flagg is a unanimous number 1 prospect in this class. He was going to go number 1 no matter what happened. If he tore his ACL, he's probably still going number 1. No matter what team was first, whether it's, Dallas or the Thunder, Cooper Flagg is going number 1. And he just so happens to be in a position of need at the wing position, small forward, power forward. So he should slot right in. Not too much on him. Everybody knows, great defender, great all-around player, athletic, does it all at an elite level. Next up, with the Spurs at the 2nd overall pick. This one's also very easy. The first 2 picks are absolute layups, right? Dylan Harper is the 2nd best prospect in this draft class by far. So there's what we'd say tier levels, right? Tier 1, Cooper Flagg. He's the number 1 prospect. A tier below him, there's a pretty sizable gap, is Dylan Harper. In most other drafts, he would be the number 1 overall pick. In terms of a prospect, I don't think people really are understanding just how good of a prospect he is. In terms of a prospect, he's on a similar level to Cade Cunningham. And it's not crazy to say because he is tall, 6'6", and he has a similar skill set to Cade and a similar weakness. The weakness being their outside shooting and their defense. And I think he is a tremendous prospect, and the Spurs can be happy with him, regardless of if they move forward with, their heavy guard depth with Fox, Vassell, Dylan Harper now, Stephon Castle. Those are 4 really, really, really good guards who deserve starter level minutes. So I expect next year, they figure out what they do. But I think they will keep Dylan Harper. He's just too good with too much potential. Now the 3rd pick with the Sixers. This is where stuff gets so interesting. Everybody said it. If you've watched other mock draft videos, the 3rd pick is where the draft really begins. Because boy, has Ace Bailey made this such a tough spot. Man, I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with some of Ace Bailey's antics in the draft process, but he denied workouts with a bunch of teams because he wants to go to a team where he could be the guy, which is fair. But you just can't afford that because that's a turnoff for a lot of teams. There might be a team desperate enough like Utah, but do you really want to go to Utah? I think Philadelphia would be such a good, spot for him. And this is kind of where Philly makes a really, really tough decision. They could go ahead and trade this pick if they really want to, because I think VJ Edgecombe and Ace Bailey are on the same level. They're on the same tier of players, but depending on fit, depending on who's picking is who goes. And when the draft lottery happened, the Philly getting the 3rd pick, I thought that was a blessing. They take Ace Bailey, a tall wing. That's exactly a position that they need over VJ Edgecombe because they have a lot of guards right now who are short and small, and VJ can't play the small forward. VJ cannot play small forward. You have Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain. You have so many of these guards. You can see their guard depth at the bottom here. They have so many good guards. So now it's just a tough decision for them because Ace Bailey would have been easy if not for the antics. But still, they could trade this pick. That's what they said. Or they take VJ Edgecombe. but I think they still take Ace Bailey here. Now, fourth overall pick. Like I said, everything for the third and fourth overall picks depends on what Philadelphia does. If they trade the pick, you can expect the team that traded up to take Ace Bailey. I'm not sure if Philly's gonna take Ace or VJ. I like the Ace fit better, but I understand why it might be off-putting to take him because of some of his antics. But if VJ Edgecombe falls to 4, I think this is the absolute best fit for a player in this draft class. He slots in beautifully alongside LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. He does everything that you need him to do. He's probably the most all-around complete player in the draft class outside of Cooper Flag. There was question marks about his shooting, but he put those to doubt. He came out, he shot the ball really well. He was a great defender. He was a good passer, good rebounder. He was able to score the ball, play off ball, play on the ball. And I think that's the exact type of player you need alongside LaMelo Ball. It's sort of how you have Cade and Jaden Ivey. I think VJ Edgecombe's a better prospect than Jaden Ivey, but you have that you have that outside game of LaMelo with the dynamic playmaking, and you have the dynamic athleticism and the potential elite defense from VJ Edgecombe, and then you also have that amazing scoring all-around wing in Brandon Miller, and I think those three could be a great trio moving forward in Charlotte if VJ Edgecombe falls to them. If Ace Bailey falls down, man, I'm not sure what the Hornets do. They might trade that pick, because I don't think you can play Ace Bailey and Brandon Miller together, because they are both similar modes of players. Now for the 5th overall pick, man, this is probably the easiest pick for the Jazz. You take Trey Johnson here. And when you look at, some of the players remaining, there's not a single player here who stands out like Trey Johnson does. He is on a similar tier of player to Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe. I don't think he's exactly on their level, because he is a shooting guard who score first. He doesn't really do much else at a great level. I think he's not a good defender. I think average, slightly below average. He's not an elite playmaker, but I think he's going to find himself in a perfect situation in Utah. I know that they have a lot of shooting guard depth, but there are rumors that they are looking to move Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson, and that's automatically going to free up a ton of minutes for Trey Johnson, where he's going to be the second option or the first option right away, depending on what they do with Lauri Markkanen. And I'm a big fan of this fit in Utah. And I think if you're Utah, not getting a top 4 pick, Trey Johnson is a great consolation prize. At least you're not the Wizards, right? You're not going to end up with like a Kon Knuppel or a Kasparis Yakushonis. You're going to end up with actually one of the blue chip prospects in this draft. And Trey Johnson was amazing at Texas, a near 20 point per game scorer on a good team. Next team we have is the Wizards. This is where stuff gets really, really tough here. But once again, I think this might end up with this depends on how the draft falls, right? Today they just traded Jordan Poole for CJ McCollum, so right away you free up point guard minutes, right? For Bub Carrington, they don't really have a weakness. I think they take best player available here, and in my eyes, the best player available here is Kon Knuppel. I think you can't have too many wing players who could shoot, play defense, and do everything at a pretty decent level. And if you're the Wizards, I think you'd be happy with Kon Knuppel. He's young. He played for a great Duke team. He's an elite shooter. You could slot him in at the 2, slot him in at the 3 whenever Chris Middleton decides it's time to hang it up. And next year when CJ McCollum's contract expires, Kon Knuppel could be the lead shooting guard. Right now, he'll probably play off the bench behind them too until their contracts are done. But I think if you're the Wizards, you're happy with this pick. He's also probably the best player available. You can make the argument for Cass, but I don't think Cass is the type of player you'd want right now. By what I mean, I think Cass is probably the better prospect, but I don't think you want a player like Kasparis Yakushonis on this team. You'd rather have Kon Knuppel because they're the same age. I think Kon Knuppel is just better right now, and he just fits the team a little bit better. Moving on, we have the Pelicans. This is where everything could get interesting as well, because the Pelicans have a tough decision here. I could definitely see them moving this pick, but with the Jordan Poole trade that they just did today, that's telling me that they're not looking for a guard. They're probably not going to look to draft a guard. They might trade this pick. I'm not sure. They might just move this pick, and that brings a lot of potential players into play because you have a guy like Noah Esenge, you have the Kaman Malu Ox, you have Jeremiah Fears at guard. Do you want to play him alongside Jordan Poole? I'm not sure, and you still have DeJounte Murray under contract. So this is a really tough spot for them. But in my opinion, if they're looking to contend or if they're looking to try and make a push next year, I think you just go with Noah Esenge. I think he's probably the best fit for you here. Then again, right, you could see Kaman Maluak going here if they don't believe in Yves Messi like that. It's a really tough spot. But I think I'm gonna have him taking Noah Esenge here from France. He is 6'8". He's one of the youngest players in the draft. He does it all. He could be your small forward, power forward. You have some insurance for when Zion's not there. I know some people think this is a reach. Some people may say, oh, he's going too high. But out of all the prospects remaining, I think he's probably the one that fits the best, and he's probably the one that the Pelicans are willing to give a shot on. Next, with the 8th pick, the Brooklyn Nets. Once again, based on the way the draft is falling, this is a pretty easy decision in my opinion. I think you just take Kasparis Yakushonis or Jeremiah Fears. You can't go wrong with one of the other. This entirely depends on what the coach or the front office is looking for, because these two have very differing play styles. Kasparis Yakushonis is a calmer player. He's like a Tyrese Halliburton. He's calm. He reads the defense. He's not a great shooter. He's not very hyper or athletic. He's a nice, calm player. Jeremiah Fears is the exact opposite. He throws himself with reckless abandon in, not necessarily a bad way. He's a good passer, good defender, athletic. You have a tough choice here. But ultimately, I think the Nets will go with Yakushonis. I think he's the overall better prospect. Oh, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you can't fall into 8. It's unlikely to happen. It probably is unlikely, and he might be off the board at this point. But the way the draft has been falling and the way the trades have been going, I think Cass is fine at number 8. With the 9th pick, man, oh man, would the Raptors be happy with the way this is falling? This is a easy decision for them, in my opinion. You have Quickly, you have RJ, you have Grady Dick, you have Brandon Ingram, you have Scotty Barnes, you have Jakob Poeltl. What do? You take the best player available, and on this board, the best player available is Jeremiah Fears. I think if you're the Raptors, you're so happy with how this falls, because this team is really expensive right now. Really expensive. You're giving $30 million to 4 different players quickly. RJ, Ingram, Scotty, Jakob Poeltl's making a good amount of money, so is Chris Boucher. You're probably going to have to pay Ochai Agbaji and Grady Dick next year. So it comes down to, managing their costs. And out of all those players, who sounds the most expendable? Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, right? But there really isn't a RJ Barrett replacement at a high enough level for you to take here. I think if, the Pels decide to go a different way, Noah Esenge falls here, Noah Esenge could very well be in play. But I think Jeremiah Fears is the pick here for them. Now, the 10th pick, we have the Suns. Man, the Suns would be so happy with how this is falling. They take Kaman Maluak. Come on now. Easy pick. You take Kaman Maluak, a nice defensive center, 7'2". He's in a position of need. He's, I think, the best player available as well, with the most upside as well. I think Kaman Maluak's an easy pick here with the Suns. I don't think there's much explaining you need to do. Next is the Blazers, man. This gets real interesting here. The Blazers can go a bunch of different ways, but I think, Colin Murray-Boyles is in play. I don't think Yegor Demon's going to be in play here. I think they just have too many guards. They did trade Anthony Simons, so they have a little bit of freedom there. But then I don't think they want to really take a guard. I think they're going to look for a nice wing. Maybe they do take a guard. You never know with some of these teams. But I think they're going to look for a nice little veteran forward, someone a little bit older, because by the looks of it, they might be looking to make a push with the Drew Holiday trade, right? So I think Colin Murray-Boyles goes here. I know 11 is probably a little lower, or it's probably right where they have him, but I think Colin Murray-Boyles is a great pickup here. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls. Now, this is also a team that could go a couple different ways. I think what's mainly in play here is center, and you have a center on the board in Derek Queen. I'm not the biggest fan of Queen. I think he's just too ball dominant in the post, and that's not the type of big man that fits the modern NBA. But I think he can adapt. He has shown flashes of being able to shoot. He's not a bad defender. He's a good rebounder. He's a decent post hub, and he'd be a good Vucevic replacement. Though I don't necessarily think he could be your center of the future. You never know. But I think in a position of need, Derek Queen is a good pickup here. They'd probably rather Kaman Maluak, but hey man, I don't think Maluak's gonna fall below 10. Realistically, if Maluak's available at 10 for the Suns are gonna snag him up right away. Next, we have the Atlanta Hawks. Now they're in a pretty tough position. They just traded for Tingus Pingus today. They gave up really nothing, Georges Niang and Terrence Mann. So you don't really have a lot of positional needs here. You have Yeka and Tingus Pingus at center now, although they are both injury prone. I know it's a big question mark on who you take, but I think Carter Bryant is a great player to take here. He's a small forward, power forward who could play alongside Trae Young. He could play alongside Jalen Johnson, Risache. He could maybe play the small ball 5. I don't think he really will see many minutes there, but I like Carter Bryant here. He's very young. He can shoot the ball. He does everything pretty well. He didn't have a great season at Arizona, but he's still good enough where you take him here. Now the Spurs. Man, this is interesting right here. You have a couple of different routes you can go at 14, and there's nothing really wrong you could take. I'm a fan of Yegor Demon at this spot. I'm a fan of Austin Newell from Georgia. I'm a fan of Jace Richardson, but I don't think they really need another guard. I think they're more than likely looking for a wing or a backup 5, something along those lines, and there's a couple of them available in this class right now. I think you probably want someone who could play a little bit of everything. You don't necessarily need potential, but if you're looking to make a push, you'd probably take best player available. And I think what fits them the best is Rasheer Fleming. He's a little bit older, yes, but you already got your top prospect in Dylan Harper with that second overall pick. So I think you're more than willing to be a little bit reserved and a little bit safer. And I think Rasheer Fleming out of the prospects left is probably the safest pick. And so I'd probably take Rasheer Fleming here for them. He's a good rebounder, small, power forward, tall, strong. I don't think he could play the small forward position. He's a little bit too slow-footed, but he'd be great to play alongside Wemby in the non-Jeremy Sohan minutes, and he gives you a little bit something different, athletic, and he's very intense. So I'd like Rasheer Fleming here. 15th overall pick, the OKC Thunder, man. I know what you're thinking. Another OKC pick. Oh my goodness. Yes, they have a couple. And there are also rumors that they're looking to move into the top 10. I don't know how likely that is. I don't think it's going to end up happening. Maybe it does. Maybe they give the Wizards an offer that the Wizards can't refuse, because the Wizards really they want to draft, but they don't necessarily need to draft anyone. They don't really have a positional need. But I think if you're the Thunder, this is a pretty easy pick in my opinion. I think Liam McNeely is the pick here. I know he didn't do very well at the Combine. I know he didn't have the greatest season, but he's a good mix of shooting and defense, and I think he'll be pretty good on the Thunder in their system. Next, we have the Grizzlies. Now, this really depends on how they move forward, right? They have a couple different ways they could go. They can take a Yegor Demon here because they just traded Desmond Bane. They no longer have Desmond Bane on their team. They can go with an Austin Newell, but I don't think they want a player in that position anymore. Jace Richardson fits well, but you can't play him and Ja alongside each other necessarily. I think the real play here is Cedric Coward. Great shooter. I'm a big fan of Cedric Coward, and I think he fits good with them. He's tall, he's NBA ready as well, so he could be like your Jalen Wells, but in this draft class instead. With the 17th overall pick, we have Minnesota. Man, this is also another tough decision because there isn't a really clear prospect that you're looking for. I think Rob Dillingham's your point guard of the future. So is Ant. You have a lot of positions filled up, but depending on Julius Randle's future, right? You might want some insurance, and I think there's a player here that does just that in Austin Newell. I think he is a great player. He is so young, so athletic. He has shown shooting touches this year. Against his game in Auburn, he went toe to toe with Janai Broom, the best player in college basketball. He didn't, they didn't win, but he showed out. He showed who he is and what he's about. And I think Asa Newell would fit alongside the Timberwolves. And they also have the Georgia connection with him and Ant. I think Asa Newell is a great insurance backup in case Julius Randle is gone. Next, we have the Wizards. Now, if you're the Wizards here, you throw balls to the walls. You take based on potential, right? If you miss this, you miss this. It's okay. You got confident, but you're happy, right? Now, I think there's two players in play here. You have Yegor Demon, Nolan Traore, or Jace Richardson. Any of these three could go here, realistically. I'm the biggest fan, personally, because he gives you something a little bit different. Like I said, Jace Richardson. I'm a fan of Jace Richardson here. Great shooter. He didn't measure well at the combine, so I don't know how they'd feel about that. But I think he just gives you something a little bit different, and I'm going to go with him here. This is interchangeable. I think Nolan Traore or Yegor Demon all could be in play here. 19th pick. This is fun. You're the Brooklyn Nets. You just took Kasparis Yakushonis. You probably want something a little different. You don't want any conflicting position in Nolan Traore. I think you just take Yegor Demon here. A lot of people have him higher than I do. I'm not a massive fan of him. He's good. I think he's a good prospect. You'd probably take him there if he's available. He probably goes earlier than what I have him at. But like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of him. Now, 20th overall pick, the Miami Heat. This is a tough decision as well, but also not so tough, I think. I think it's a pretty easy play here. You take Nolan Traore. He's probably the best prospect available. He's in a position of need. He wasn't, tremendous in France. He was a decent shooter, good playmaker. He's, the run-of-the-mill French point guards that you've seen, this doesn't sound good, but he's like Killian Hayes as a prospect. Good passer, not a great scorer. I don't know if he's going to be like Killian Hayes, but at this spot, you can't really go wrong, I think. The Jazz. Man, this is an interesting spot as well because you just took Trey Johnson, right? So now you probably want to take someone a little bit different. And when you look at the class, right, there aren't really any super different players left over, but I think Nick Clifford is a great player to take here. Like, once again, he's a taller wing. He's a little bit older, so you're not really drafting on potential here. Thomas Sorber could also be in play. I think Thomas Sorber or Ben Savage could also be in play here. But I think you really want to let Trey Johnson flourish. Thomas Sorber could be in play depending on what happens with Walker Kessler. But I think Nick Clifford is just a great player to take here. He's a shooting guard who could slot alongside them. If you're the Jazz, you'd be happier if Nolan Traore falls here. But like I said, that's unlikely. Now, the Hawks. The Hawks have an abundance of decisions they can make here. They could go with a big, with either Sorber or Danny Wolf. I think they could use another big if they have Onyeka and Tingus Pingus. They're both very injury-prone players. But the type of player you want alongside Trae Young is what you're thinking about. These two, I'm not even kidding. They play as differently as bigs can play. Man, Danny Wolf is a hooper. You go watch some of his highlights if you guys haven't. He's a little bit older of a prospect, but he's so fun. I don't think the Hawks take him. I think the Hawks take Thomas Sorber, though. He just fits a little bit better. He's a little younger. I know they might not want to take another center, but they probably have to. Their centers are just too injury prone as it is right now. Now you have the Pelicans. Man, you take Ben Saraf here. Out of Israel, he was pretty good for the league there. He's a good shooter, good passer. He does everything all right. He's not a groundbreaking prospect, but I think he's somebody that the Pelicans would like because he can play some combo guard for you. I know that's kind of what the Pelicans have too much of. They have too many combo guards, but I think he's someone that they'll be happy with. You have the Thunder. Okay, this is like my dream pick for them. Man, just take Danny Wolf here, man. I know, you probably don't need more centers. You have 3 really good centers in Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet, and Jalen Williams. But Danny Wolf is just such a fun player, and imagining him in OKC, doing his little penny step back spin move, it just sounds so fun. I think Danny Wolf's a good pick here. Now we have the Magic. Man, the Magic could take anybody they want here. They made their big trade. They got Desmond Bane. I think you just take whoever's the best shooter available, and that is Will Riley probably, or Walter Clayton Jr. I think Walter Clayton is just a little bit too short, and a little bit too old for what they're looking for. So I think Will Riley probably is the best pick to take here. He's a better shooter and he's just younger. Next up, we have Brooklyn. Brooklyn has so many first round picks. They have another one that got traded today, but it's not included here, so I didn't bother trying to include that in here. And you just took Cass and you just took Igor Demon, so you have back to back picks. You could take anybody. I think they trade these two. I'm gonna be real with you. So I'm not really gonna draft this based on fit because I think these are gonna get traded. But Boogie Flan shouldn't fall any more than what he has already. He wasn't the best in Arkansas, but he plays a little bit similar to Jeremiah Fears. He just makes questionable decisions sometimes. He needs to slow down a little bit, think a little bit before he does something. But I don't expect the Brooklyn Nets to keep these two picks right here, 26 and 27. I expect one of them to get moved or both of them. So I'm just gonna draft based on who the best player is now, for the Brooklyn Nets at least. 27, same thing. You have a couple of ways you could go. You have Drake Powell, who could definitely see here. I was a big fan of Yaxel Landenberg, but he moved out the draft. Todd Pettiford's also I'm a big fan of, but he also kind of undeclared from the draft. Zion James is in play here, but I don't think you take him this high. And there's a couple players you could take here, in my opinion, but probably none better than Walter Clayton. I assume a contending team takes this or tries and trades for this pick. Walter Clayton's a fine player. He's older. It's a good pickup. Boston Celtics. Hey, I think you just take Hugo Gonzalez here. Small forward, can shoot out of Spain. Nothing really groundbreaking here. If you're the Boston Celtics, you're happy with this. 29th, you have the Suns. The Suns, I think, it could go a couple different routes. Ideally, you would want a wing here, but there aren't many of those available. You have Adu Thiaro from Arkansas. He played alongside Boogie Fland. I think he's a fine pick here as well. And for the final pick, we have the Clippers. Man, what a boring pick. This is really tough. But in my opinion, it's between Drake Powell or Cam Jones here. I think I'm a bigger fan of Cam Jones out of Marquette. I know he's a little bit older. I know he's in a conflicting position with Norman Powell and James Harden. He does a couple things similar, but I really don't see him going anywhere else. I know Johan Beringer is in play here, but and Noah Penda. I don't think they even consider LeBron Fillon. He's so high. I don't think he's that good, LeBron Fillon. I think you take Drake Powell here with the last pick. He has so much potential. He was ranked highly touted in high school, so I think he's the pick here. And this is the final mock draft. Let me just bring everything up so everyone can see. Final mock draft right here. I'm not sure how well it's going to play out. Man, there's a lot of stuff that this depends on. We could see a ton of trades tomorrow. I'm talking a ton, a record-setting amount, because there are a couple teams unhappy with their draft positioning, a couple things in limbo. But man, shout out Ace Bailey for making this actually interesting, because shoot, Philly has a tough decision, and in turn, the Charlotte might have a tough decision, and in turn, there might be a big winner coming from some of these, like fourth-tier prospect teams like the Wizards, the Pels, the Nets. You could see them move up. And the Nets have 5 picks, man. You could package them 5. You could package Cam Johnson and move up pretty easily. And it'd be tough for Philly to, refuse a package of 8, Cam Johnson, and another first-round pick. It'd be tough for them to refuse that. And if you're Brooklyn, you're so happy with ending up with Ace Bailey, because that's a great situation. But that's all for the mock draft. If you guys like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see me do more of these mock drafts, like a way too early 2026 mock draft, I'd be happy to do that as well. Shout out Fansville for such a great system. And let's see how the draft goes.